Facebook as well. And today my guest is Katarina Radke, and we're going to be talking about 3 pitfalls of peak performance. And let's kind of jump straight into the good stuff. But first of all, welcome to my live, Katarina. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How's Fiji doing?
Yeah.
You're in Tahiti.
Yeah, exactly right. We're in Tahiti, and I think there's a bit of a hot soup in your neck of woods right now.
I'm pretending I'm on the beach. You see?
Yeah. We've got a little bit of a rainstorm going on here. So, but hey, so give me a little update. Like how you handling through this situation? What's happening there? Obviously, not just the elections, but a whole bunch of other things going on. How you been holding on, and how you kind of balanced, if you will, your sort of your own performance on your life and lifestyle. How are you holding on and keeping up with the what's happening?
I actually feel very good. I believe, Viktor Frankl's book, In Search of was it Man's Meaning or something like that? The idea that we can only control what we can control, and that's ourselves. And so I get up, I do my meditation, qigong, some journaling. I get myself into my place where I want to be. And there's a lot of external circumstances going on in America right now, and whatever's meant to be is going to be, And I'm pretty happy. Got my busy raising my kids and doing my own business on peak performance and health, and helping people be their best even during these stressful times, and realizing that there's a lot we can do to stay grounded.
Yeah. So what I like, let's take something straight out of that. Like, what are your sort of quote unquote grounding tools and tips? For me personally, is I like to go and walk on the beach and look at the sunset and be in the nature and meditation. That's what I use for my grounding tools. What about you? What's happening?
I love being in nature. If I can be in nature and be barefoot walking around on the beach or in the woods or wherever, that's my number one. I also love to swim because that's my background. So I love the water. But right now it's been beautiful. I'm in Minnesota, United States of America, and it's been like 70, 75 out today, which is rare. Sunny and 75. But if it's cold and wintry, I still get outside, but I still really also do my own meditation in my room. I sit underneath this pyramid, and it's from these Buddhist monks that created it. And I believe it gives me good energy, gets my mind nice and quiet. Nice. And I do some breathing techniques and some other movement stuff every morning. So that's where I get started.
Right. All right. That's awesome. That's one of my key practices every morning.
We'll have to do a video just on that, maybe.
Yeah. That's those mindfulness practices these days, they are such a key factor, I think, especially what's happening right now. And all right. So let's get into the good stuff. That, like, the title of this live is 3 pitfalls of peak performance, and I'm super excited to have you on, because we did a couple of podcast episodes about the whole same thing, and your background as an ex-Olympic swimmer, and right now as a peak performance coach and trainer. So you live this kind of quote unquote peak performance or high performance lifestyle, if you will, and you're very active. You're very much outdoors, but I think it comes with let's put it like another side of the coin, if you will. And I like, for me, the first quote unquote pitfall is, if you think of a word peak performance, like that peak, you cannot stay up in that very high level long periods of time. And I always use the metaphor. I mean, you're the testament of this, that especially if you look at the top athletes, and probably also the top business people, on the very, very pinnacle, it's a very short amount of time that we spend on that pinnacle, in quote unquote peak. So the word itself is already a little bit of a misleading. Yeah. So when you were at your Olympic career, if you will, and like really training really, really hard, how often during the year or during the season you had the quote unquote the peak performance?
So it's very interesting, Tomo, because sometimes I really believe we can get into the peak state every day, but it's different than having the huge crowd in the stadium and the noise and the rah-rah. And it's kind of like a rock star going in to play music in their own studio in their house. It's private, where they can still get into a wonderful zone. It's very different than being on stage and performing with millions of people around. So there is that. I do believe, and I've always wondered this, is it possible that as human beings, we can stay in the flow state more often, like 24/7? And I'm not sure, because we have an ego with the body that we come into the world with. And, even a baby is crying when they want to get fed or, nurtured.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a very interesting concept of the ego versus not having the ego, and how much can we be in the peak performance place. And so I know what you're saying. Like we're going to be talking about burnout a little bit here. And if we're using our adrenal glands and our adrenals in general too much, or adrenaline, to actually be in the peak state, that will burn out, because that's too much of the sympathetic nervous system. But
Right.
if we're really letting go and the ego's no longer there, and we're just surrendering into who we really are and letting ourselves flow in the peak state, we can be there for a long time.
Mm.
And I've experienced that for hours, where I'm just in the moment doing my thing as if someone else is doing it for me. And it's easy. It's really easy.
Right.
It's very different, though, than the trying mode. And I think what
Right.
happens with a lot of us who are overachievers, we also are very diligent wanting to do all these things to become amazing at whatever we're doing, that sometimes we get in too much in the try mode and we get stressed. And if we're getting too stressed, then it's hard to actually, maintain that mode because the left brain, who likes to try too hard, is not going to be able to maintain itself.
Mm. And that's what's happening, right? Was that your experience in your Olympic times as well, and when you were in the athletic realm?
Yeah, so it's very interesting during that time, Tomo, because I was training. The philosophy back then, especially my main coach, was very into having us train like the East Germans who were on steroids. And so
Wow.
we were training more than we really could. And what happened, a lot of people did get burnt out physically and mentally. And so the key was to find ways to keep tapping into, what's possible. And some days I didn't know if I was going to be able to make it through a practice, let's just say. I was so tired or whatever was going on. And so those are places where it's very, borderline of having that stressful moment that physiologically, increases your cortisol levels, and you can't maintain it on a chronic basis. And that's what's happening to our society, I feel like, so much right now, especially those who are watching the news in America. It can stress you out if you're getting too caught up in what happens. And if we make it too much about a polarity with whatever we're doing, we're going to have divisiveness, which leads to not tapping into the oneness of who we really are. And so to get past, the pitfall of peak performance, we have to let go of the ego. We have to train the ego to get quiet, but then we have to get to the place where we trust that it's okay to let go of it and surrender into our deeper self of who we really are. And that's where we tap into the universal energy that guides us to where we can go.
Right. So there we're going deeper into the inner being. Yeah, let's dive straight into it. Like get out of that sort of physical realm and straight into the deeper self. Yeah, I love that. All right, so that's one of the things. Now the second thing, kind of, bringing it back up to the surface level again. We can dive back there, but the second pitfall for me is, again, like those you mentioned about the flow state, and I really want to come back to that because I'm really passionate about that as well. But for me, the second quote unquote pitfall is the sustainability and consistency factor.
Yes.
Those high levels or the peak levels, very very hard to keep them sustainable. Very hard to keep them coming back day after day. You mentioned about the flow states. And but what are your ideas of how can we have that quote unquote high level or more daily, how can we keep it more consistent?
I think
because it's hard.
Committing to a practice. And it sounds so simple, and yet it's so true. If it's a matter of being really, really clear on why you're going after what you want, what's motivating you and driving you to do what you're doing, number one, so that you actually have a focus on what you want to do. And what happens when you have that focus, so much of the stuff that's distracting you or stressing you out goes by the wayside because you don't waste your time on it anymore. It could be people that are judging you for what you want. It could be other people who, let's say, are eating lots of French fries and donuts and coffee and cigarettes while you want to be eating raw foods. It could be so many different things, right? And if you're surrounded by people that are inspiring you, the energy is very different. Like I was very fortunate when I was swimming, my environment was I was around a lot of people who had the same dreams. And so because of that, the energy was very optimistic about what's possible. So yes, the consistency factor is hard though, because physically, I know there was days where I just needed a break. And luckily I had Sundays off because I'd go to church with my family. And so that would make a difference because, if I didn't have that day off, I would have never recovered in order to come back on Monday. So same thing applies for corporate people, business people, whatever, family people, whatever it might be. if let's say you're raising a bunch of kids at home, that can be very stressful too. You just need a day away or alone,
Mm-hmm.
a few hours can make a big difference, right? So it's learning to have the balance. And it was
Mm-hmm.
a hard thing for me to learn that, but throughout my life, I've learned that more and more. Is that when I structure in my time, and I'm not somebody who's very structured, I like creativity much more and like more randomness and
Mm-hmm.
adventure. But I
Mm-hmm.
find that when I structure in allowing myself to have downtime, maybe it's just a daydream,
Mm-hmm.
or it's to go for a walk or in the woods, or go play.
Mm-hmm.
It makes it so much better when I come back to do the focused work or training if you're an athlete. So
Mm-hmm.
it's so important to give yourself both because our bodies need both. Going back to literally the nervous system, how it works.
So what I'm hearing, and I'm a huge fan of this energy factor, and a lot of people when they hear like energy, they think of something like quote unquote woo woo stuff. But for me, taking care of your energy is absolutely primal. Like we need to do that. And then you mentioned about the environment and the people, which is sort of a little bit like the external energy that feeds our energy, our internal energy. But for me, if you break it down, the word energy for me, it's mental, it's emotional, it's physical, and then you can call it spiritual or spirit or like a little bit of a deeper energy, if you will. So I kind of break down the energy part into four kind of sections, and taking care of those four pillars, if you will, when it comes to energy, I think is absolutely crucial. And then there's sort of different practices and different ideas of how to do that on each pillar. So I just wanted to put that out there because a lot of people, when we talk about energy, either it's very, very physical thing, or then people think that, oh, it's all the way up in the sort of the woo-woo sort of spiritual side, but it's a
And the
lot
woo-woo is
more than
interesting.
that.
So I'm with you because as I work with clients, I don't talk about the woo-woo so much, and yet I'm a
Mm,
firm believer, and I don't believe in one religion or one way, but I also can say that my experience in life is when I've been really deeply in the flow, it's not just
mhm.
me doing it. I trust there's a
Right.
bigger divine purpose of what's going on for me, and none of us are left alone. Life takes care of all of us. Life loves us. We're fully supported even when we don't feel like we are, and
Mhm.
it's important to realize that. And it's funny because I'm much more of a masculine personality than I am a feminine one in some ways. And yet, the ego, yes, we have a wheel and it drives us, but it's also important to honor that we can ask the universe, God, life, whatever, to guide us and take care of us. And amazingly, things do show up when we stay open, but we have to release the blockages, what we're too attached to having or not having, right? The
Mm.
aversions too, the things we're afraid that might happen if we tried and went for it. And I think that's the biggest thing I find when I work with a lot of clients, especially corporate people, is they're striving for a new title or more money or this or that. And yet they don't realize they have enough right now. And they need to be grateful for what is so that they can go to the next step on the mountain, but they don't have to get so stressed out about it.
So here's the thing, like that I want to take something out of that. What you just said is that trust the process or trust the universe, trust the energy. And again, if you look at what's happening outside right now, that's a sometimes a tall order, or like that's a hard ask. So where would you start when somebody like, oh, I don't trust the world, I don't trust the people, I don't trust the government, all my friends or whatnot, and yet we're saying like, okay, trust the process. Like you gotta trust that world's got your back, if you will. Like,
Yes, and it's funny, right? Because I don't know. I mean, we could go into the election, which I don't want to spend much time on, because that could be a whole can of worms. But the truth is, maybe the truth is coming out, and maybe the stuff is going to have to happen for a new play order to come into place.
right.
Whatever that may mean. I mean, we're coming to a place where people don't want divisions anymore. They don't want somebody owning us or having to look to somebody to be the hero to save us. We
Mm-hmm.
all have that ability within us, and it's important for us to realize that power within ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And more people are using their voices now, which is wonderful, even though it's becoming chaotic. And so, but through this, we're going to come to another level of consciousness as a society throughout the world.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a beautiful thing because we all are here to help each other grow and learn and be the best of who we can, whatever that might mean for each of us. And the more we can honor what we really are within and help each other be that person and not judge them so much, because that's how we're judging ourselves, it changes things.
Mm. So that's again, we're coming back to that inner work, the mindfulness, awareness. For me, the word that I'm hearing right now is awareness. To be more aware of who you are, where you stand, what you stand for in the world, and being more firm about your own beliefs, and just like when you hear something calling inside of you, kind of like that's a sign. Maybe that's a lot like little voice inside of you saying like, follow that path,
Yeah.
instead of like what's happening outside in the world. So I think that's what I'm hearing, and what I feel is like, yes, we got to trust the process and trust the world, but also like trust that little inner voice that you have within. Like some of those little, and sometimes they're very, very subtle. It can be like little small thing, like gives you like a little, twitch, or it can be physical, mental, emotional, something.
Yes.
It's like follow that. At least like that's a little bit of a hint for you that something is out there calling, or inside is calling you.
Yes. Well, one thing that really worked well for me, I mean, my third grade dream was to be an Olympian. And for me to have put that out there on a piece of paper it takes courage, right? And so I think
Right.
part of the thing, like I work with athletes a lot, and sometimes it's just having them dream big enough, because sometimes people are afraid that they don't deserve it, or they're not good enough, or they'll never get there. So they don't even dare dream what they could do. And so we have to be able to say, hey, I'm going to just see if it's possible to manifest this. We don't know. Somebody's got to do it. Why not be me? Or let me go make a difference in somebody else's life to do what they're here to do. And with that, though, it takes a lot of willpower to commit to that dream and take action steps boldly towards that dream. Even if we don't know if we'll get it, because we don't know. But we'll feel really fulfilled if we at least try.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Something again, like I'm just relaying back what's coming to me. One of the big words and one of the big sort of stumbling blocks, I think, right now, what many people are feeling is they feel lack of purpose. And what's coming out there is like, once we start helping others and putting ourselves out there, we all of a sudden we start feeling a bigger sense of purpose, right? That there's something bigger in the actions that we're doing, and the why and how we show up in the world. And I just love it. That's amazing over there.
And that's what we do. We form our own community, right? Like you and I working together. We talk about doing a retreat potentially in Tahiti. There's things that we're going to be doing over the next year or two where we're going to find our own tribe. People who want to be about the light and the truth and love are going to come together. People who want to go after what's possible within themselves and see what level they can get to with whatever they might be pursuing. That we all come together to support each other in that. And that's what's important, is for us to work together with others and saying, and being okay with being vulnerable, saying, I'm scared. I don't know if I can do X, but I'm going to go after X anyway.
Yeah.
Hey, I know you can do it. Let's take this first step together. And that's how we all can work together to help each other be more consistent, because we'll have our own group of people that are supporting us in our ultimate bigger dreams and visions. Yeah,
like dreaming bigger is huge. And what you just mentioned there is the support, the community, the people around you. I think for me, for the longest time, I went at life like kind of by myself and on my own, and that's how I grew up. And I was like, oh, I gotta hack it on my own, and I got somewhere. But in the end of the day, it wasn't that much fun either. Like when I look back at it right now, I was kind of selfish. And I was doing things all on my own, for myself, by myself. And right now, when you add people, even if it's a conversation like this, or physical things that you interact with others, life becomes so much more fun, like so much more rewarding.
Yes.
So I'm a huge fan of environmental effect, of having the right people in your corner, as friends, as supporters, as community. Like and again, let's like kind of backtrack a little bit to what we're talking about here is the peak performance pitfalls and the peak performance or high achievers lifestyle. Like if you have when you have the right people in your corner, I think that's one of the absolute key factors, key elements, and key pieces in that whole equation. Would you agree?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. All right, so the last pitfall that I want to get into is the like when you hear the word peak performance, for me it kind of supports. And if you look at social media right now, one of the two main words that are coming out for me is hustle and grind. And we think like we gotta hustle, we gotta grind, we gotta work harder, we gotta just go at it with everything that we got. And as a byproduct from that, of that kind of mentality and that kind of lifestyle, a lot of the times there's this lurking big thing called the burnout. And I believe if you experience some kind of physical sort of, if it wasn't the burnout, but I think that's a big sort of pitfall of this lifestyle. And so if you want to iterate a little bit on that, and what would be your tools and tips and how to sort of protect yourself, and more than that, prevent yourself from that pitfall?
Yeah. So as you know, I was training 5 hours a day, 6 days a week as a teenager, and when I was on the U.S. national team for 7 years, and
Mm-hmm.
my coach really believed he was, like I mentioned, trying to keep up with these Germans who were on steroids, and our bodies weren't, and so it was pretty much impossible. And yet we tried. And what happens is, yes, the body gives out at some point. It can't maintain. You don't have enough recovery time to. And it's the same thing emotionally, mentally. We're dealing with a epidemic. I know it's the COVID or
Mm-hmm.
elections everywhere. But the truth is that's come down to fear and anxiety that people are living with on a daily basis that's eating them up physically and emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
That I'm
Mm-hmm.
noticing a lot, especially with clients I'm working with. And really it's coming down to me, the epidemic is more about fear. Fear of not being good enough, fear of not being loved, fear of what if I don't pursue, what I'm here to do, or what if I, a lot of people end up getting what they thought they wanted, but then they realize it didn't change who they are. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's a big piece I've seen a lot of, is having people know it's okay to not be perfect. It's okay to be human. And I think the biggest thing is to, kind of like the idea going back to the physiology side of things, of that we have to be allowing ourselves to train hard one day, but then you have a recovery day. It's the same thing on the emotional side, mental side, is that we don't have to go kill ourselves every day to try and do something. But what if we were in a place where we had the will and the discipline to go do what we're here to do, but we also learned to get quiet within. So it's kind of like going back to the nervous system of the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system. We need both to function, and they need to function well. If our parasympathetic is not functioning, our digestion doesn't work. And as you know,
Mm-hmm.
right now in the world, the nutritional world, we have a lot of products coming out there for people to take to help them have, daily bowel movements. I mean, it's sad, but we're in a place where people are stressed out. The food's not the same as what it should be. And we
Mm-hmm.
need to get to a place where people learn to take care of having the downtime to let the body process information from the day, having time to digest the food you're eating, having time to be able to sleep well, rather than have to go take a sleeping pill that messes with your hormones. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm a big believer in allowing our bodies to do its natural thing. They are here to heal us. And same with our emotions. I mean, we're in a place where we've all had things happen. It could be as simple as feeling ignored as a child by a parent or a friend or something that triggers us into a wound. And yet we can let it go, But sometimes if we've held on to those things for too long, the story becomes too big. And what happens is it starts living in our cells and our bodies, and we can actually get sick. So it's
Mm-hmm.
important. I'm a firm believer, the more we can become aware and allow ourselves to feel, which is not always so easy. I know for me, I pretended I was fine for a long time because I had a lot of
Mm-hmm.
pride, and I thought being vulnerable meant I was weak. And that's not true at all. I realized the opposite. When I put myself out there to get help, oh my God, I got so much support. And I was able to receive in a whole new way that I didn't even know I could get. And I was like, wow, this is really cool, And, my background is mainly German and English. And, those cultures are not ones who usually are, very, like, Italians are much more giving and receiving, right? And
Yeah, right.
also Mexicans too. And so there's people who are used to being able to give and take a lot more. And that
Mm-hmm.
was something I had to learn. And I think a lot of people in society really are lonely, even if they're amongst people, because they're not able to be real with each other. It's much more of a superficial level. And when people do get more real, they feel more connected to themselves as well as each other. And it takes
Mm-hmm.
everybody to another level. Like somebody wrote in here, having a solid community to support us. Yes, absolutely. We need
Yeah.
a place where we're helping each other, be who we're really meant to be.
Yeah, 1,000%, 1,000%. Yeah, I just wanted to actually quickly acknowledge here. There's Anna, there's Rob saying hi. Epex is
Yeah.
saying that the solid community
Hi,
is super, super
everybody.
important.
I know some people have to go, but
Yeah, we are on LinkedIn and also on Facebook Live at the same time here, and I think on the YouTube as well. So if somebody's watching there, say hi. Yeah, so there we go. Awareness is a huge thing, like we just mentioned about the having that self-awareness. And not just like, I think it starts from that self-awareness, but then obviously we need to have the quote unquote external awareness instead of having those like sort of blindfolds on. Once you kind of start walking out into the world and start opening up your awareness, that helps so much, helps tremendously. Like even just walking out in the street, instead of looking just the street in front of you, like, hey, look at the flowers outside, look at like, the sun is shining, like the ocean breeze and things like that. I just, that brings me the state of gratitude very quickly as well, and just opens up that awareness. And the byproduct of that, it calms my nervous system down.
yes.
Like when you're hyper focused on one activity, which is a different aspect, but once you open your awareness, it straight away starts kind of things start relaxing and easing off, and you take that pressure off from just being on that one sided track, if you will. So that's amazing. And for me, like, you gave us a whole bunch of ideas of how to sort of balance out, and for me the big word is optimization, like how to optimize that levels of performance. Awareness is one, and we talked about grounding, we talked about mindfulness. If someone is don't know where to start, like what would be some of the sort of top 3 ideas, like really sort of quick ideas where to start with if somebody's like quote unquote burning out, or you're burning the candle
Number
from
one,
both ends?
simple, it's free, you can do it anytime, is breathing. So we're going to inhale through the nose for 4 seconds, hold it, exhale out the mouth. Make some noise, let the jaw relax, and get into let the muscle, the body relax into it. And doing that for a couple minutes will, first of all, calm the nervous system down. And I think then ideally you go outside and get some fresh air wherever you are. If you're indoors, you go outside. Even if it's cold, you bundle up and take in whatever the world around you has outside, just for the fresh air. I think getting moving, getting the air flowing, first of all, through the breath is really crucial because it gets oxygen flowing. There's a lot of breath stuff that we could do, but that's number one. Number two, getting some fresh air, being in nature if you can, because the earth has such a powerful magnetic field that resets our bodies immediately when you walk on it. And so that would be number two. And then number three, ideally you go back to just asking yourself, hey, what do I want to create today? Who am I really? What makes me happy? What's something I can do that's magical today? What's something who's somebody I can call that I could get some help from? Asking the questions. What kind of question do you want to ask yourself every day? And then at night, being grateful for what you're grateful for. Sounds so basic. And I'm not somebody who's into all of that totally. I am and I'm not. I'm much more the peak performer who's like, go, go, go. But I also know that it helps me trust. It helps me trust that I'm on my path. And I think sometimes it's easy to think that we're not on our path because we seem so far away from maybe where we want to get to, whether it's the amount of money you're making or a title you want, or whether you're significant enough in the world or whatever it might be for people who want to be out there. But reminding yourself of who you really are and just tapping back into, like, what are your joys? What makes you feel good? What are you grateful for around your home? And just whatever it might be, even if some things that have gone wrong in your life, those are your messes that you can make into a message that you can help other people with. There's so many ways to spin it, right? So I think it's okay. It's funny. I'm not one who believes in just reframing and being positive, because I think it's important to be honest with yourself when things aren't going well. And say, wow, I created this, but why did I create that? Well, maybe I was afraid, and so I decided to pretend I wasn't good enough, and then I started drinking or something, and it leads to other paths. And so it's important to say, hey, that's who I am. That's part of who I am. I've had some fears. Okay, can I change that? Can I look at it differently and see where it takes us?
Yeah, 1,000%. Like, again, what's something that comes to me from that is that living a intentional life. I'm a big fan of living with intention. And where does that start from? Starts from the first thing in the morning, like spending a little bit of time, if it's half an hour, even 15-20 minutes by yourself, with yourself in the morning, and setting the intention for the day. What do I want to create today? How do I want to show up? What is the person that I want to be today? And that comes from that's where the intention starts. And then again, like, we don't have to get too deep into this, but for me, when I'm setting goals and when I'm having a vision for myself, when I'm having a great vision for my life and for my future, then that kind of like, it becomes easier to set those daily intentions from there, because okay, this is the path that I want to walk on, this is the direction that I'm going. And this is especially, like we mentioned earlier about the purpose. I'm a big fan of that. Once you truly feel that you have a bigger and deeper purpose for your life, then again it becomes, I'm not saying it's easy, but it becomes easier to set those intentions for the day. And then that external noise, if it's the news or if it's the TV or the people telling you XYZ, it becomes easier to stay on your path and know, like, okay, this is what I'm here to do. This is the way that I want to show up, and this is the person and the personality that I want to show up in the world today. So intentional life is a big thing. And the other
for people who are in relationships, I know some people who are listening might be parents or have little children or whatever. It's easy to get busy. and stressed with all the daily activities of dealing with all of that. And it's
Mm-hmm.
important to take time for yourself, even if it just means 5 minutes going in and saying, hey, mommy's or daddy's going to go in the bathroom and just chill for a little bit. I know some people who are little kids, that's hard, right? Like my kids are now teenagers, so I'm in a very different place than I was 15 years ago. But it is interesting because a lot of people who are working then come home to kids or other things going on in their life, and they don't know how to decompress. And so learning how to ask each other for their space, like having boundaries, and just saying, you know what, I need 5 minutes alone right now. And then I'll be able to do X with you, whether it's a spouse or a partner or a child or grandchild or grandparent, whatever it might be, is learning to ask for your needs. And that was a big thing that I learned a lot when I was in graduate school, is that so often the bigger issue is people don't know how to ask for their needs because they have a guilt associated with it, or the fears that come up, or somebody might reject you if you actually state what you want. But that's one thing I know, the more I have gotten good at expressing my needs, wow, it changes things. I'm freed up. I don't have to like wonder or walk around on eggshells or, worry about what somebody's going to think. I have to trust that they can take care of themselves, whoever I'm working with.
Where do you start with this whole thing about asking? I'm a huge fan of that. And I know a lot of people probably struggle with that. Like, I don't want to ask, I feel X, Y, Z because I'm that the other person is superior to me, or it's not on my level or whatnot. But asking, there's so much power in asking. And you mentioned about setting boundaries, which is absolutely crucial as well. If we live without boundaries, it just doesn't work, especially today. But that asking piece, like where would one start again? Like if there's something like a burning question under, like you want to reach out to someone that's sort of quote unquote, in the different level or the different ranks, or how would you build that courage to go and ask and just like put yourself out there in a way?
It was very interesting to me. I'll have to share. So many people I've talked to who are elite in whatever they've done, like they've reached the pinnacle of something, are often surprised at how few people reach out to them. And
right.
Some people are really bothered a lot, and then some people are never really bothered a lot, and so oftentimes they love to be able to share their gifts and what they were good at. Let's say it was a martial artist who has some cool tips, and that person wants to reach out to them because they were somebody they looked up to. That person would be thrilled to probably share something with them. I know for me, I still sometimes get people asking, obviously about the Olympics or different things in my life, and I love to be able to help people and or share, right? Because we're all much more connected than not, and we all have gifts, no matter what our stories or backgrounds are. Everybody. It doesn't matter what level you got to anything, because you still have something that's really special. And it's important to realize that. And I think sometimes the people who are really, really busy, who you still like to reach out to and get some advice from, well, maybe there's something you could do for them in return. You never know. And the response might be just having them feel like they got to be able to give you something that day.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's a golden one. I love that. I love that fact that especially it doesn't really matter where you are, but I feel like you said, like the people that have accomplished a lot already and have a quote unquote title, they have a platform, or they have an audience or whatnot. A lot of the times we look at those people like, oh, he's there, I don't want to, he or she is up there, and who am I to ask advice? But if you turn the tables around, like you just say, like maybe those people, they actually want to help. They've already done the work. They just want to give their gifts away, and they want to share and help others. So they would be actually really happy to hear about you and share their knowledge.
Yes.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So we'll start wrapping up from here. That's beautiful. Thank you so much for your time already. And saying that's a nice bridge from there. How can people reach out to you, and how can we learn more about you? Like, how can we ask help and advice from you?
So I have a website, KatrinaRadke.com, or they can join me for my free Facebook group, Keep Shining Your Light. I also have a channel on YouTube, Katrina Radke, and I'm on Instagram, Katrina Radke, #1. And please reach out with any questions you might have, or I'd love to be able to work with you. Reach out any possible way. KatrinaRadke.com is probably the simplest way. Or Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, all of them. Katrina Radke is the name. Also as well as on here.
On LinkedIn. All right. You're all over the place. Thank you so much. That's awesome. Hey, that was super cool. Thanks so much for all those tips, all your time. how to balance peak performance lifestyle, if you will, and how to bring more optimization, more groundedness, and make it all happier and sweeter when it comes to creating that beautiful lifestyle that we all want. Thank you so much for your time. Any final words?
I was going to mention too, if people are interested, I do have a book called Be Your Best Without the Stress that goes into a lot of these topics with actual tools that you can use as well.
Beautiful. All right. Make sure to follow her. She's a wealth of information on this field. And until the next time.
All right. Thank you.
Have a beautiful day.
You too. Bye.